Now, with respect to the agenda, is there any errors or omissions or changes to the agenda? Oh, shoot.
No, there isn't, Madam Chair.
Just one question. Are we discussing terms of reference with respect to the terms of reference for CPC tonight?
Yes, it's at the end of
Now,
the
with
agenda.
respect to, pardon me?
The terms of reference is the last item on the agenda tonight.
Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't see the agenda. I don't have a printed copy, so bear with me. I'm going to have to kind of go back and forth a little bit here. Okay. So the next item then on the agenda would be the September 16 minutes. Are there any errors and omissions on those minutes as circulated?
No, Madam Chair. I just confirming with the commission. Yeah.
Okay, if so, then can I have a motion to approve the minutes as circulated? Thank you, Lyle. Mr. Balmer? Okay, and I believe the next item on the agenda then would be the council update.
I'm sure Morgan and I can probably tag team this one, maybe. Council stuff has been busy. We've had lots of things going on. It's going to be a busy couple months. Obviously, obviously the big ones is the public hearing on zero lot lines, which is coming up on Monday. So obviously that's going to gain some attention, especially from our CPC side of things. Other than that, budget is coming up, so we will be handed the budget on Monday at our council meeting, and so obviously we'll have an opportunity to look it over, and then we go into deliberations as of mid-November, and at that point then we decide on budget at the first council meeting in December, I believe, on it. So it's going to be a really tough year. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be lots of hard decisions that need to be made, but that's kind of some of the things that I know. I know that is being a member of the Economic Recovery Task Force. The Economic Recovery Task Force and the Social Recovery Task Force met through a meeting last Wednesday, and we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about obviously the economic impact, but also just about the mental health impact and how we really noticed that there's been a decline lately within Cochrane. Just the positivity, people are more easily able to comment, I think, and frustrations are running high on every sort of thing. So we're hoping to bring back some sort of community positivity in whatever way that we can. So they are working on that. And then obviously we do have the live press conference coming up on Tuesday talking about traffic. And so this is for people that obviously are frustrated with traffic. I would encourage everybody to tune into the Town of Cochrane administration as videos are being released, encouraging people to watch. I'm not going to get into the details about what's going to be talked about, but would just encourage people to watch and find out what is happening. And this will kind of fill in some of the gaps when people see things out there that are being done, but they really have no understanding and they just complain about why we've done them. And so they're going to have a much clearer picture of what our long-term vision is for traffic solutions around Cochrane. I don't know if Morgan wants to add anything, but that's what I have on my side.
Marnie, how could you forget the number one update? We opened up the bridge.
I wasn't there. That's probably why.
Yeah, I guess. But bridge is now open. Moving forward in our traffic plan, the next big step that really needs to unlock the potential of that is expanding the Center Avenue and Highway 1A intersection. We've already got 2 lanes on the one side of the road developed, and then what we're going to be looking to do, working with the province, is creating a dual left-hand turning lane so we can funnel twice as much traffic off the highway down through Center Avenue and through the new bridge. But it's actually, a lot of our traffic modeling has shown that one of the number one reasons that hill gets backed up is from people trying to turn left. And if we can relieve pressure on the left-hand turns, it's going to help out a lot. Following up on the financial stuff that Marty touched base on, yeah, it's definitely going to be a difficult budget year and difficult couple of years. No doubt about that. But the good news is that Cochrane, compared to other municipalities, is actually in quite good shape financially. I don't have any stats readily available for you right now, but I can tell you that in recent council meetings and recent strategic planning sessions, we've looked at a lot of information, and we are in a decent position heading into a tough time. So, it could be worse. We could be one of these governments who's already really in a hole and really struggling. But I'm feeling optimistic about our finances for sure, and feeling optimistic with the amount of discussions going on with traffic. And I think last time we spoke, I raised some concerns about the pipelines interfering with the 1A22 intersection. Minister McIver was at our event, I guess, last week, and he is acutely aware of our highway, and he reaffirmed for everybody in his speech about the bridge that he will be making sure that intersection gets built. He said it, and then our MLA Peter Guthrie said it as well, publicly, right in front of everybody. So feeling good about that project as well. But that is it for my update.
Good. Any other questions or comments for our counselors? No, I have one question. I think that there was, just for my own clarification, on an annual basis, it's October. So was there discussion about whether or not the members, will you be staying with us, Councillor Fidegko and Councillor Nagel, or will there be a change?
That's coming up at our next meeting. And so we have been encouraged to put in our requests. I'm hoping to stay on CPC personally for another term. I think that it would be good to kind of carry out. I've been here for 4 years. It'll be my 4th year then. So I think that would be good on my end. But obviously it'll depend on what the other councillors decide. And we haven't heard from everybody yet, but we'll obviously let you guys know as we go forward. And I'm not sure what Councillor Nagel, what his thoughts were on that one.
Yeah, and I'm not going to put you on the hot seat.
Oh, I'll likely be sticking around. I mean, to be honest, I am open to trying new things. I spent a lot of time on CPC and not a lot of time on the other committees, despite the fact that I've been a councillor for 7 years now. So if someone else wants to swap me committees, I'm open to it. But I would guess that the probability is I'll still be here next year.
Okay, good. Thank you. No other questions or comments? Then thank you for your report. The next agenda item, I believe, is the Development Officer report for September.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to start by saying I'm filling in for Mr. Stewart tonight. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it tonight, so I am here with you. It's good to see everybody again. The Development Officer's report for September, it was included in your agenda package. There were a total of 21 development permits for the month of September. Up to October 15th, 2020, there was a total of 129 development permits to date, as of that date, rather. Compared to October 15th this time last year, there was 157 DP applications, and that has resulted in a 18% decrease when compared from last year. The development permits that were processed in September have been included in your report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weldon. I do have one question, just for my own clarification, because I always forget. So a home-based business major, is that, those are discretionary, are they not? And I just noticed that there was one approval that was done by a development officer. Just for my own clarification as to it didn't come to CPC. I could be completely wrong on that, so I'm just looking for clarification.
Yeah, I believe the development officer is the development authority for home-based business majors.
For majors? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because it was listed as discretionary, so I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's one of those discretionary uses where the development officer is the development authority. Yeah.
Okay. I just noticed, so there's a number of development applications brought forward by a company called Priority Permits. Do you know who that company is?
I don't know, Madam Chair. That company personally or had any experience with them. It's not all that uncommon for a company, for people to hire a company to make applications on their behalf. I'm assuming that this is the case, that they may have been hired on behalf of one of those or of one of the homeowners or applicants.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Weldon?
I have a question.
Okay, that was a voice from the dark. So,
Mine, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
oh, Mr. Balmer?
Yeah, I had the same question on priority permits. I guess when I was looking at this, there were 14 signs approved in 3 different permit applications for the exact same location. Can you, Mr. Weldon, just fill me in on what that's about? There was DP 2021-12, DP 2021-13, and DP 2020-078, all by priority permits. One was for 10, actually for 13 signs. It looks like one's for 1 sign and one's for 3 signs. So that's 17 signs. It felt kind of odd to me that we'd have 14 or 15 signs go up on the same property.
Yeah. So the context of here is the thing to focus on is the location. It's Fireside Gate. So that is the commercial area in Fireside. So if you look at it in the context of that development, and they are fascia signs, so they are on the building face, the flat signs that are on the face of them. Yeah. So that's why there are so many signs on for that particular permit itself. Yeah. And that priority, yeah, and just to clarify, sorry, just to go back to Ms. Spence's question, is the priority permits, it's not unusual now that I see it here for people to hire a sign permitting company to make these applications. So, thank you.
Okay.
I have one more question, if I may.
Oh.
DP 2020-093. So I understand that the development officer is the authority for side yard setbacks if they're less than 10%. If they're more than 10%, do they come to CPC?
Yes, that is correct. Unless it is an existing, unless it's an existing development. If it's an existing development, then the development officer is the development authority.
Okay, I think I understand that, but
yeah, so it's if there's an existing development and there's an application for a variance on that existing development, then the development officer has the has 100% variance authority.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, can I have a motion to approve the development officer report as presented? Somebody? No?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Marnie. Thank you, Ms. Vidaco. Okay.
May I interrupt just a moment, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I believe we may have missed agenda item 4, adoption of the previous minutes.
Did we? Okay. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the September 16th meeting as circulated? Ms. Lang? Thank you. Okay, so I believe, and I'm going back and forth in papers, so the next one I believe is DP 2020-106, presented by Mr. Nordquist. It's a side yard variance for a rear detached garage.
Good evening. So tonight I am presenting DP 2020-106.
Could you speak up, Mr. Nordquist, please?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Could you speak up, please?
How is that?
A little better,
Better?
thank you.
All right, so yeah. So the applicant is proposing to build a rear detached garage on the property. However, due to the width of the property, a 0-meter side yard setback is required to fit the structure. The site location is 66 Belgian Street. It is zoned R3 residential multi-unit dwelling district. And it is for an existing townhome where they currently use a parking pad for their parking. Accessory buildings are discretionary use. And under section 3.1.1, it may be decided by development officer. However, because of the variance required is greater than 10%, it is now being referred to CPC for a decision. And just quickly on this image shows a bit more context of the townhome itself. We are looking at the center unit there, and they're looking to put a 2-car garage on that existing parking pad space. So in review of the LEB regulations, as you can see, they have asked to reduce that side yard from 0.61 meters to 0 meters while maintaining the other side yard as 0.61. It's meeting the other regulations such as rear yard setback and building height, and it's not exceeding the lot coverage. It should also be noted a variance is required due to the size of the garage. It's not quite meeting the minimum parking stall area. And I'll show it a bit more detail later on the floor plans. All right, so the proposed site plan does, as shown here, shows that garage basically will be developed right on top of the existing parking pad. It is having a 0 lot line, which does present some issues. Particularly in this case, there will need to be a maintenance and access agreement with the neighboring parcel. And this is to allow the landowner to legally access and to maintain that sidewall, since normally they would need to trespass on the neighbor's property. Additionally, with the design of these townhomes, grading is an issue. And again, the landowner will need to enter into agreement with their neighbor to allow the drainage to flow across their property and onto the street. Both of these agreements are captured as conditions of the permit. So as shown on the proposed garage elevation, it is front back split. So the drainage from the garage will be directed towards the lane. However, it is quite the narrow garage with only a 16-foot door. And showing more detail is a floor plan of the garage. And though the footprint of the garage is just under the minimum requirement of 5.5 meters by 6 meters, when you take in factor the walls and the garage doors, it is quite a bit smaller and is really a struggle for 2 cars. However, that area is still above the 2-car compact stall widths. So they are proposing a variance of 11% so that they can maintain their 2 parking stalls on site as required by the land use bylaw. Some site photos for more context of the site. Again, you can see the parking pad, which was poured and very much prepared for a garage. However, at that time, they never went forward with it. Now the current owner has applied and will be using this pad as a foundation for the garage. And as you can see, both of the existing garages were built with minimal side yard setbacks with the expectation that they were going to form a bank of garages. So administration is recommending that the Cochrane Planning Commission approve the development permit for the garage with variances listed in the report. And I am now available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nordquist. Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments? Let's see. Lyle, you have a question? Mr. Balmer? You are,
I thought I was muted, guys.
okay.
Thanks, Adam. So this, if this garage would have been built when the unit was built, it would have been an attached garage with the three of them. Is that accurate?
No, they were always proposed as detached. However, there was a development permit on file that was expired, hence the new application now. However, the agreements such as the drainage and the maintenance and access were drafted but never registered.
Okay. So I did have a question on the drainage, but you've kind of answered that. I do have a question about fire protection between this garage and the ones on either side of it. If they're banked garages, I believe they got to use, I think it's 2 layers of 5/8 firewall protection. Will there be additional requirements of the construction of this garage for fire protection? Lots of garages aren't even drywalled inside. So how do we protect his neighbors from that?
Yes, so the garage will need to be built to Alberta Building Code specifications, which will require that additional drywalling. So when they review the permit in this case, they would be looking at the setback from the garage to the property line. And it being at 0 meters will trigger additional fire rating standards.
So will this garage be sided with vinyl siding?
This current proposal is yes, it would have vinyl siding.
Okay, thank you.
While I wait for anybody else, Adam, I have a number of questions. If I remember correctly, these this subdivision, this row, they were actually, the lot size was actually made smaller than it should be in error, correct?
Yes, this development did receive multiple variances.
Yeah, it did. Okay. So I'm wondering a couple things. So how could you have a maintenance agreement, right, a maintenance and access agreement when the two properties are butted up or the two buildings are butted up to each other? I'm having a little difficulty seeing how someone could get in to work on maintenance and access when there's no room between them.
So through the chair, the maintenance and access agreement is more for legal access. So it gives the owner easement on that property. So if for ever a circumstance that that they do need to repair that wall or that there is an issue between that space, they can legally enter it. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's physical access, but if work needs to be done, it can get done.
So would they have to take the outside wall of the other property down in order to work with it?
Through the chair, it would depend on the extent of the repair required. The other garage does not, isn't a 0 lot line garage. I believe it has about an 18-inch setback. So there is minimal space, and depending on the work being required, it would denote how it would affect that existing garage.
Okay. And these properties are R3, are they not? Which means that there won't be an application coming forward in the future for an accessory suite?
Through the chair, I believe that they, I'm just trying to recall now for the R3 development. I believe it was amended with the rest, so they would still need to make an application for an accessory suite if that's what they were proposing.
So are you saying that an accessory suite would be discretionary or not allowed at all?
Through the chair, can you give me one moment and I'll bring up the land use bylaw?
Absolutely.
Just confirming it is a discretionary use in the R3 zone.
Okay. And has there been rulings before, because you state in here that there's an 11% variance. So a person could possibly park 2 smaller vehicles, but we can't dictate, or we don't have legally, we can't say to people, you can only buy small cars. So that's correct? Yes?
Correct. And I'm basing the variance on the garage door just to make sure that there's access for the vehicles. With, again, the footprint itself is quite close to the size. However, and when we look at parking paths, we also take into consideration access and doors and how the vehicle would, how people would basically get in and out of the car and in and out of the parking space.
Yeah. So it could be very likely that people would have to park out front anyway. What's the ruling at the front of the buildings with respect to street parking? Is that allowable?
Through the chair, the street parking is public parking, so it is available for anyone's use.
Okay. And just, well, 2 more questions. So I noticed in the aerial photos that 2 lots down, which was a middle, so these are these are properties that are 3 buildings in a row. So 1, 2, 3, and then the middle one, and then if I go down 1, 2, there, it looks like that there's a single car garage and a parking pad. Now I'm assuming that between that single car garage that there's the minimum access available. But those 2 lots would be similar in width, would they? The one that has a single car garage and the parking pad?
Yes, I believe they do have a similar layout. There might be some slight variances for the end units just because of the angle, but the center unit would have the same widths.
Right, okay. And just one other question. So sorry to take up all the questions. And I don't even know if I could ask this in this way. So Jaylene, if I could ask for your guidance here. But so would this development permit, if brought forward to us following the updated land use bylaw, would it be approved? Or do I have to consider it under what exists today?
You can only consider it with the existing land use bylaw.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I thought I would double check. So those are kind of my comments and questions. Anybody else comments and questions with respect to this development permit?
I have just a comment. So what I'm understanding from your questions, Deborah, is that currently on the pad they can park 2 cars there, but if they put a garage up, getting 2 vehicles into the garage unit, it would be difficult because it's the entranceway is going to be a lot smaller, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I do have a concern about that. I think that currently they have the space and everything to keep the cars off the streets. And good point that you brought up that the lot next door, or the triple lot next door, the center unit has the single car garage and a parking pad, which still allows for 2 vehicles. So just voicing a concern that that the garage is not going to be used to the extent that the parking pad is now, and just cause more traffic on the streets. That's it.
Okay. Now I can't see everybody. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? No?
Can I make a comment? The only comment that I would make is obviously when it comes to fire protection. I am concerned about that in the fact that, you know, we're allowing people now to build practically on top of each other, which is scary. So that would be my biggest concern, is kind of the idea about fire and the precautions that are going around that. But other than that, that's kind of where I land.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fideko. So if there's no other questions or comments, is someone willing to bring a motion to the floor?
I will. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'll move the recommended action.
So is that option 1 to approve, Mr. Nagel?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Any other questions, comments? Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, then we will have a vote. And all in favor?
In favor.
So there is 4 in favor, opposed? Carried. Okay, so the next development permit on the docket tonight is childcare services. It's DP 2020-019 to be presented by Ms. Cosby.
Good evening. I'll just share the screen here. All right, so tonight's application. So good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. The application being presented is for childcare services listed as a discretionary use in the residential and 2 dwelling district R2, located at lot 39, block 16, plan 1311727, typically known as 9 Amberside Link. The childcare services facility will have the capacity for 86 children. The application meets the minimum required parking stall requirements of 1 stall per 6 children and 1 stall per 10 children for pickup and drop-off stalls, for a total of 23 parking stalls. And the use is compatible with the existing adjacent uses to the site. The slide before you illustrates the colored renderings of the child care facilities. This is a 3D slide that illustrates the layout of the building, the outside play area, parking, main front access to the building off Amberside Link, and landscaping to be provided. Planning has reviewed the application with the town's statutory documents. The MDP provides overarching direction for development in Cochrane. The application meets Principle 2, social and cultural well-being, and Principle 4, economic vitality. It also meets Policy 8.6A, complete communities. The Cochrane Sustainability Plan supports the application in pathways 6, 7, 10, and 11. Although the Fireside Neighborhood Plan is not a statutory document, the plan facilitates the planning and development of a community and provides more detail than the area structure plan. With the neighborhood plan, the key design elements are the building blocks of a community that include a mixed-use development, allowing for local services. This also provides some local employment opportunities. The neighborhood plan also supports a local service in the form of a daycare. The purpose and intent of the R2 district is to provide for single detached duplex and street-oriented townhome residential development in existing neighborhoods and new neighborhoods that are designed to provide integrated varying lot sizes and to allow for a blend of different housing forms. These neighborhoods may contain a limited number of accessory suite or garden suites. The application meets the minimum setbacks, parking, landscaping, building height, and controlled appearance requirements outlined in the land use bylaw. The application was also circulated to internal and external agencies for comment, and there was no concerns raised. Here are some site photos of the property looking east and also looking north. This is another site photo looking northwest adjacent from the subject property. Administration is in support of the Child Care Services application as it meets the requirements of the land use bylaw and is supported in the Fireside Neighborhood Plan, Sustainability Plan, and MDP. Planning is recommending option 1 with the recommended conditions outlined in the report. Thank you. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cosby. Okay, any questions and comments? Ms. Vadeko?
I will go ahead and move option 1 at this point. I don't really see any outlying issues or real big concerns about the fact that they are wanting to put a business in here. And I think that right now the town should support business in any way that we can, unless there's a reason why we shouldn't. But considering what the business is, where they're looking to build, and the fact that there are no other kind of outstanding issues from nearby residents or other businesses, I'm fine with supporting this.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Are there any questions or comments before we go to a vote? And again, I can only see half the people, so if we could close the close the presentation. There we go. So any other questions or comments? If not, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor?
In favor.
Okay. And opposed? It is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, the next development permit is DP 2020-114 for 2 digital freestanding signs. DP 2020-114. Mr. Nordquist.
Sorry, one moment. Just need to bring up the presentation.
Un momento.
Okay, here we go. So this is DP 2020-114. It's for 2 freestanding digital signs. So the applicant is proposing to replace 2 existing freestanding signs in their drive-through with new digital signs. These digital signs would be slightly different from a typical digital sign, as it will have a changing menu listing, as well as graphics showing the menu listings, and there will be some animations to confirm items that are being ordered. So the site is 202 5th Avenue West. It is in the shopping center district, and there's an existing restaurant and drive-through there. It is within the digital sign overlay zone, which means that it is a site-specific discretionary use. This is the digital overlay sign just for reference. It is map 12 of the land use bylaw, and I've just highlighted the site with a star just to show you where it sits in that overlay. So when reviewing digital signs, we do look for conformance with the Western Heritage Design Guidelines, which does provide some material suggestions such as brick, wood, or metal. The proposed signs will have black metal frames and a much smaller profile than what is existing there. So they'll be quite minimal in nature and will leave most of the interpretation to the building itself for Western Heritage. So the LEP does have extensive regulations for digital signs. And on this, and I've broken them up into what it is currently complying with, such as a requirement for them to be freestanding signs. They are under the maximum height. They are single-sided. They're not interfering with the traffic of the site. Right? They are replacing the existing freestanding signs, so they're not adding to the number of signs. As well as they're going to have fixed messages that will slowly change under that 3-second interval, and their brightness will be controlled. So they will generally be, or at maximum, they'll be around 1700 lumens. And when they're idling, they'll actually be under half of that. So however, 4 variances are required for these signs. Some of them are just due to the nature of the sign. Such as I mentioned, there will be some animations and there will be a variance for this. Additionally, the hours of the signs will need to be altered just to match the hours of the drive-through, as these signs are required for the operation. Couple of other variances that required is the minimum sign area. Since they are under the minimum size of 4 meters, 53% variance will be required to accommodate the smaller size, as well as a variance for the separation distance between signs. There is an existing digital sign on site, right, which these signs will be 30 meters away from, but on the other side of the building. Additionally, they are going to be 4 meters apart, so there will need to be a variance for the 2 signs themselves. And just to kind of show where these signs are going to be in the existing drive-through signs. So currently, highlighted in blue on the site plan is the location of the signs. And you can see in the image below, they are existing 4-panel signs with a speaker box built in. The proposed signs, again, I said, will have a much more minimal design. They're simple black, and they will have 2 LCD screens. They will show the menu items, as well as they have the capability to confirm orders. Again, this is a proposed elevation just to show what they're kind of downsizing from. The older signs were much more widened as they had to accommodate all the menu items, whereas the new signs will be cycling through them and will therefore have a smaller profile. And just an existing site photo to show the flow of traffic in the drive-through. As said, the signs will have some slight animations as they cycle through. This is an example of the animations that they've provided. As you can see, it will go through the menus as well as have slight animations for confirming items that are being ordered. So administration is recommending that the Cochrane Planning Commission approve development permit 2020-114 for 2 digital signs with variances subject to the conditions listed in the report. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nordquist. Okay, so from the committee, is there any questions or comments? Ms. Fideko?
I have one quick question. When it talks to the lumens and the brightness, and it does say that the brightness will be around 1740 lumens or 300 units, what is that in comparison to what is already, I guess, approved when it comes to digital signing?
So through the chair, that would be, again, that 1700 is at maximum. So it does have an ambient sensor that will trigger when cars approach the sign. However, that is still well under the maximum for our backlit sign regulations, which I'm just confirming so I don't get the wrong number. Is 6,000 lumens as our standard maximum.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and approve option 1. I really don't have, I'm normally sometimes a stickler when it comes to digital signs or how many, businesses are allowed to have. But you know what, in this type of area on that particular roadway, I'm not overly concerned about about the digital signs, or I mean, within reason. I don't want to see everybody all of a sudden come forward with a digital sign, obviously, but with placement, with the things that they're trying to do, I don't necessarily find it anything that I'm overly concerned about, as well as there are no backing on residents that I'm concerned are going to be blinded by their sites, as well as there are many other digital signs along that roadway. So I'll go ahead and move option 1.
Oh, okay. So we have option 1 on the floor. We do have a comment or question from Ms. Moore.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I would support this as well. A couple of reasons. One is they are trying to upgrade the property. It looks like, coming into this kind of stage of technology, and it looks cleaner and nicer. So that they're investing in upgrading the property, and like Councillor Federico said, that it's really not going to be any burden to anybody. So I support it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. I believe there's a comment from Mr. Balmer.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Adam. I would agree with Councillor Federico's comments. Normally, I'm a stickler for any signs, and then when you start lighting them up, I get even more agitated. But this case, this looks like a real good business decision. I see that the light from these signs is not facing any highways. It's facing all a bunch of business districts. So this is one that I think I can get behind in. I now want to go down. I'm hungry. I watched a little video and now I want to go eat something.
Okay, I do not see anybody else's hands up. No questions, no comments. So that being the case, we do have a motion on the floor. Option 1 to approve development permit 2020-114. All in favor?
In favor.
And opposed? It is carried unanimously. Okay, and that leads us to the next item on our agenda, which is bylaw 18/2020, to be presented by Ms. Hoffer.
Yes.
And the topic is 0 lot lines.
Just going to share my screen here. All right. Good evening, Commission members. Tonight, I'm here to present to you bylaw 18/2020, an application to bring the opportunity for 0 lot line. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we had a bunch of interference there. Just try again, just start again.
Okay, sorry. Good evening, Commission members. Tonight, I am here to present to you bylaw 18/2020, an application to bring the opportunity for 0 lot line development to Cochrane. Administration received an application that is both a textual and redesignation application to amend the land use bylaw. The application includes the creation of a direct control DC1 district to accommodate for the opportunity for 0 lot line single detached dwellings, and to redesignate limited areas in the Fireside, Riversong, Sunset Ridge, and Heartland neighborhoods. If approved, the direct control DC1 district would allow for the opportunity for 0 lot line homes. The properties would still maintain the existing development opportunities of the current R2 district and the R1 district for the portion of the block in Sunset Ridge, as indicated on the map, which we'll look at in a few slides from now. So before I get too far into the application, I just wanted to take the opportunity to explain what a 0 lot line development is. So this is a traditional lot. Traditional lots are the most common type of lot for a single family home. With a traditional lot, a home is plotted on the center of a lot, and in most cases has a minimum of 1.2 side yard setback on either side. As opposed to a traditional lot, a zero lot line development sets the home on one property line and requires a 1.5 meter setback along the side opposite the zero setback. Sorry, I maybe jumped ahead a little too quickly there. So that's just showing the 1.5 meter setback along the one side. So what is a zero lot line? Within the 1.5 meter setback, a 1.5 meter wide easement is registered on each of the properties. The easement generally addresses the ability to access the easement area for the construction and maintenance of the dwelling, digging holes, constructing footings, walls, and roof eaves, allowing the footing to encroach 0.6 meters into the easement area and the eave of the house to encroach 0.3 meters for both of the houses on the adjoining lots. Generally, they also require a distance of 0.9 meters to be maintained between the eaves of both houses. The owner of the easement area will not build nor maintain any building or structure within that easement area. They also will not plant or landscape in that easement area or do anything that would hinder access to that easement. These rules generally don't apply to window wells being constructed in the easement areas or within the easement area, nor does it apply to parking areas. However, it depends how that easement is drafted for that particular development. So this is a comparison of a block developed with zero lot line and one developed traditionally. There is 2.4 meters between homes on a traditional block, so 8 feet between homes on a traditional block, and 1.5 meters between homes on a zero lot line block, so 5 feet. So the difference between a traditional and a zero lot line is 8 for a traditional, 8 feet for a traditional, and 5 feet for a zero lot line. Lots are generally smaller for a zero lot line single family home. The design of the homes is limited for zero lot lines as the side of the home that is on the property line cannot have any windows, taps, plugs, or vents. This is a street view comparison of a traditional lot on the left, which is the 2.4 meter setback. And on the right side, it shows zero lot line setback with the 1.5 meters between the homes. There are two types of zero lot line developments that are gaining popularity in many municipalities, front access and rear access developments. A front access zero lot line includes a front garage. These types of developments may be accommodated through a larger lot width. So our current lot width standard is 9 meters. What the proposed application for this DC district is asking for is 8.84 meters in lot width. A rear access zero lot line home generally occurs when front access is restricted and the homeowner must access on-site parking from a rear lane. The left image indicates a rear access zero lot line built based on the current land use bylaw minimum lot area and lot width standards. However, the desired lot area for a rear accessed home under this application would be 7.62 meters or 25 feet in width, with a minimum lot area of 240 meters square. So section 36.0.0 of the land use bylaw allows for the creation of a direct control DC district. DC districts are generally applied with the existing, when the existing land use districts within a bylaw are inadequate or inappropriate due to the unique characteristics of the lands and or proposed land use or development. Due to the unique nature of the zero lot line development concept, Bylaw 18/2020 proposes to create a direct control district called DC1 to accommodate this type of development. If approved, this direct control district will be the first DC district in Cochrane. Now I'd like to take the time to go through the DC1 district and explain what is being proposed. So as with every land use district in a land use bylaw, there is a purpose statement, and generally developments that are occurring within that district must abide by that purpose statement. So the proposed purpose statement of the DC1 district is to accommodate single detached dwellings built against a side property line to achieve narrower lot widths. Within the direct control districts, they are a unique planning tool allowed under the Municipal Government Act, which allows council to place specific authority on land as allocated as direct control. So what's really important about a DC district is that the development authority be prescribed. So in a DC district, council can choose to either set the development authority with the development officer, the Cochrane Planning Commission, or they can choose to maintain the development authority for themselves and make decisions on all development permit applications within that district. So the proposed development authority for this district is the development officer. This district also proposes to add a definition to this district, which would be called, which has been indicated as a zero lot line single detached dwelling, which means a single detached dwelling built against a side property line. The proposed permitted uses listed for this district are the uses listed within the R2 district with the addition of a zero lot line single detached dwelling. This district also restricts the uses on the properties currently zoned R1 within the Sunset Ridge area, which we'll look at in a few moments, that form part of this application from having a semi-detached or a duplex dwelling as a permitted use. So those properties will, if this application were to be approved, those properties currently zoned R1 would only be permitted to build a single detached residence as a permitted use, or a zero lot line single detached dwelling should this application go through. So before I carry on with the discretionary uses, I just wanted to take a quick look at the R1 and R2 uses that are currently allowed for these properties. As previously mentioned, the application is proposing to still maintain the development opportunities within the underlying land use districts of the R1 and R2 districts. However, what changes for these particular properties is that they are applying for to allow for zero lot line single detached dwellings as permitted uses. So the list of discretionary uses for this DC1 district are also the discretionary uses that we previously saw, on the previous slide. Street-oriented townhomes are being excluded from the lands within Sunset Ridge, which are currently zoned R1, This was very strategic as the neighborhood plan only allows for single detached dwellings on those properties. So it was necessary to restrict it for those properties. All right, so the proposed development regulations for this district are, if they choose to proceed with a housing option other than zero lot line, single detached dwelling, then those regulations that are prescribed within the R2 district apply to these lands. However, if they choose to develop a zero lot line, single detached dwelling, the regulations have been prescribed within this DC1 district. So they are applying, and they would like this application, the applicants would like this application to be applied to laned and laneless lots. Also, to decrease the minimum lot area for single detached dwellings from 300 meters squared to 240 meters squared. To reduce the minimum lot widths for laned lots to 7.62 meters. And for laneless lots, or the ones that have the front attached garage, to reduce the lot width from 9 meters to 8.84 meters. This district also proposes to allow for one side yard setback to be 0.0 meters, provided that there is a 1.5 meter private maintenance easement that provides for a 0.3 meter eve encroachment easement, with the requirement that the eaves not be closer than 0.9 meters to the eaves on the building on the adjacent parcel, and a 0.6 meter footing encroachment easement. It also requires that all roof and subsurface drainage be contained on the site, so it won't be allowed to drain through the neighbor's property if approved. So with these applications, there is also a need to look at the setbacks for accessory buildings. So what's proposed in this district is that an accessory building may have the same side yard setback reduced to 0 meters, provided that it complies with the maintenance easement clause, that be registered, and that all surface drainage be contained within the property. The rear yard for an accessory building that is accessory to a zero lot line single detached dwelling, the application proposes that rear yard setback be 1.2 meters, which is the current standard, or 0.6 meters where the property line is shared with another parcel, or with a lane that has a minimum of 7.1 meters in width. I believe there is one area within Cochrane that has a lane that is above average, and that is why the applicants have requested that this clause be applied to these properties, because the wide lane allows for the additional turning radius to get into the garage. As a development permit would be required for a zero lot line single detached dwelling. Currently in Cochrane, we do not require development permits for a single detached dwelling or a semi-detached dwelling, provided there has been a subdivision servicing agreement executed for the properties and that those uses are listed as permitted uses within those districts. The application also is suggesting that all accessory buildings that are associated with a zero lot line single detached dwelling that are greater than 10 square meters in area obtain a development permit as well. Currently, you can Currently in Cochrane, you can build up to 53.5 meters square in area, an accessory building. So that's a 24 by 24 garage without a development permit. So if a zero lot line single detached dwelling was being built on a property and they wanted to build something bigger than a shed on the property, they would need to apply for a development permit. So this is a map showing the affected land in Riversong or the precedence area. The left image is an aerial view of the area, and the right image shows the area slated for rezoning to direct control in gray. All white areas will maintain their current zoning. This is a map showing the affected land in Sunset Ridge. The left image is an aerial image and shows the portion of Sunset Ridge that is the subject of this application, outlined in black. The right image shows the area slated for rezoning to direct control in gray, with the portion of land that is currently zoned R1 hatched with black lines. The hatched area is restricted and will not have the ability to develop semi-detached dwellings, duplexes, or street-oriented townhomes, should that be the housing option, or should the developers or home builders choose to not go ahead with building zero lot line single detached homes on those properties. This is a map showing the affected land in Fireside. The left image is an aerial image and shows the portion of Fireside that is the subject of this application, outlined in black. And the right image shows the area slated for rezoning to direct control in gray. And again, we have the map showing the affected areas in Heartland. The left image is the aerial image outlined in black, and the right image shows the land that it forms part of the application, colored in gray. So this application does align with our Cochrane Sustainability Plan, Pathway 6, our local economy is healthy and diverse, and Pathway 9, everyone has a roof over their head, as well as the Municipal Development Plan, which speaks to a mix of housing options within our community that ranges from in scale of affordability. Our integrated neighborhood design guidelines also speak to a mix of housing options within our community and suggest the inclusion of zero lot line homes in the community. So the public consultation that has been completed for this project is during our land use bylaw review project engagement. We did ask a question of the community, how members of the community felt about zero lot line development. We also as required under the land use bylaw, development notification signs were installed at all of the neighborhoods for the proposed development. Internal and external agencies were circulated on the application, and adjacent property owners were notified in accordance with the land use bylaw. There will be a public hearing held on November 9th at 6 p.m. So the next steps for this application are, in accordance with our bylaw, the application must receive comments from the Cochrane Planning Commission, which is why we are here tonight. And then the bylaw will be presented again at the public hearing on November 9th, where comments received from CPC will be included for council's consideration. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Hofer. I'm going to actually I have a number of questions off the hopper. I'm sure that everybody will have questions and comments with respect to this. You refer several times through your presentation that there was an application. Are we, can we know who the application came forward from? For these properties?
Yes, so you are able to know who the applicants were. And so
Yeah.
it was a combined application that was made by a consulting firm who represents each of the 4 developers.
Okay, so 4 developers, okay. And so my next question is, in thinking this through, when they came forward with their development application, what was their thinking with respect to going to a direct control district? Why did they choose that versus just going directly to an R2?
So this application is being made as a pilot project. So they've chose it for specific properties in Cochrane. If they were to just come forward with a bylaw amendment application, it would change all of the rules for every property zoned R2 in Cochrane. So then that opportunity for 0 lot line development could happen anywhere. This direct control district restricts it to just specific areas within town.
Okay, and so just for my own clarification, in a direct control district, the identification as to who the development officer is up to council. That is council's decision as to who is the development officer to look at these applications and to approve.
So generally everything within a direct control district is at council's discretion because it must go forward to council for decision to become a DC district.
Mm-hmm.
The unique thing about direct control is within these districts, if council decided, you know, sometimes they're really unique and really contentious, they could decide that they want to maintain the development authority of all developments within that DC district, as opposed to it going to a development authority, which is the Cochrane Planning Commission or a development officer. So really anything within a DC district, including the purpose statement, the regulations, are at council's discretion until it's approved into the bylaw.
Okay, just a couple comments. These are my own personal comments, and we will hear from the other members. I'm very disappointed to see this coming through the way it has. And the reason I'm disappointed is that my understanding of 0 lot, and I was quite excited to see that coming forward, thinking that it would give us an opportunity to have a better use of land, but still be able to maintain the distance between residences, not to actually reduce the number of feet between residences. So while I've been on CPC, we've gone through a reduction of the lot size set back from 1.5 to 1.2. And now we're going to a total of 2.4, which is going to be 4 foot 11 inches between houses, where even if we'd maintained it at the 1.2, it'd be 7.8 feet. So we're actually reducing the number of feet between houses. So, and if we had stayed with the 1.5 and gone to a 0 lot line, it would have been 9.75 feet between houses. So I personally am, I was very surprised when I saw this application. And thank you. You've also presented quite a bit more information today that I don't know that I've had time to digest because I didn't see it in the application that was put forward to us. But I have my concerns with respect to to this application as it's brought forward. And that is my input. So I think that there's some other people that want to speak. Heather. Ms. Moore?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with what you've said, Deborah, that I'm disappointed in seeing this. I originally thought that the zero lot line proposal was in something that was being proposed in order to allow a less expensive option for like first time or newer homeowners to be able to afford a single detached home of a larger size, that the home would be larger, but the lot would be the same size as it was, and that the home would just be offset to one side on each lot, so that there would be still I had no idea until I looked at I actually did go through the whole presentation package and everything. I didn't realize that there would actually only be 4 feet or 1.2 meters between each home. And I don't see that as something that is going to, for me, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how I want to express this. For me, it's just, how do we fit more properties on the same amount of land so that we can make more money for a developer? I'm just going to put it out there. To me, this is not at all something that is going to reduce a price or give an opportunity to a different kind of homeowner. I think it's just, how do we sell more houses in the same area? And I have huge concerns about crowding, traffic. I have even bigger concerns about the safety on those lots. 1.5 meters in between each home. Then you take that lot and you say, okay, you can build a garage with the same setbacks. So now you've got 1.5 meters between probably a row of garages eventually. And then, so how is EMS and firefighters and everybody getting inside those properties to control, I mean, we have wildfires that burn for days and weeks and come up to like 3,600 hectares. And, I'm watching the helicopters go over with 6 or 7 helicopters going over at a time, filling up in the river with water to put those fires out. And now we're going to cram all of these things in. And then on top of that, sorry, I'll just keep going and then I'll be quiet for everybody else. On top of that, all of these homes will be zoned in a way that they will have the same permitted and discretionary uses as a regular single detached home. So that means that in this very crowded area, you can have other businesses, childcare services, any business minors. So that is, to me, is just opening a huge door that we don't want to go through for overcrowding areas. And then also, just in my experience and some of my studies, dealing with easements, it might seem like a really simple thing to do right now while the properties are being built and sold to the first-time homeowners. But later on down the road, 4, 5, 10 years from now, those easements are going to be a real problem when you have people buying the property. They're not aware of them. The easements is a maintenance easement. So what are you going to do with all those people who are upset because the kids are running between the buildings and doing this to the property? And, you know, what do we get? You can't build anything there. So can there be a fence? I don't know. A fence with a gate? I don't know. If a fence with a gate's in there, it's even less accessible for emergency services. So for me, this is just a big snowball of things that we're just creating, basically for me, creating a monster. We'll be dealing with a lot of things down the road with this that I don't think it's a good path for us to take. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Mr. Balmer has a comment.
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation, Jill. How did you get so lucky to draw this straw? I don't know. You are living well. Let me ask you some questions, if I may. Some things that I hadn't thought about until you gave the presentation. Would the siding on the buildings remain the same? Could they be these buildings that'll be these homes that'll be closer together? Is it possible it's still vinyl siding?
So, sorry, through the chair. So all of these zero lot line, single detached dwellings would be required to obtain a building permit. There are methods within the Alberta Building Code that allows for variance to the building code regulations. It's my understanding that vinyl siding is still able to occur on these types of developments. There is additional requirements to the to other portions of the building that would be required to obtain a building permit. However, one of our safety codes officers could probably better answer that question. It is not, sorry.
It's possible it could be vinyl and these houses would be closer together. The second question was, did I hear you say, what was your comment about windows would not be allowed on one side?
Yes. So generally the side that is located directly on the property line,
Right.
they generally, these types of developments do not contain any windows because that's part of the building permit.
And the third question was, so one of the things that happened in my neighborhood is the neighborhood slowly built out is there was empty lots here and there, and that the builder would come along and excavate for a basement. And of course, he doesn't have any legal right to excavate onto somebody else's property. How would you excavate say, for example, a home gets built and leaves a blank lot in the middle, and now they're going to build that new home? How do you excavate for that foundation without going onto your neighbor's property?
Right. And so how the application has been made is that there will be comprehensive development plans submitted to us. So that would include a development permit that would account for the entire block together. So although I'm not familiar with how exactly the timing that they would do it at, but I believe that they would try to excavate them all generally at the same time, because the footing of each of the foundations is allowed to encroach 2 feet into the neighbor's property on each property.
Even outside of the encroachment. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Were you finished?
Okay, yeah, that's everything.
One of the problems that I experienced, and this is to Heather's comment about what this could bring in the future, is you get an empty lot in between two. The builder wants to excavate as wide as he can, of course. I wouldn't let him excavate onto my property. He convinced my neighbor that for safety, he had to excavate up to her bottom of her footings at 30 below, right? So it just leaves us open for problems for Cochrane residents. So those are my 3 questions. You answered them. Thank you for that. Let me give you my comments that I hope get forwarded to council. This one, unlike my counterparts that spoke before me, is more than a disappointment to me. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed because when zero lot lines first came before CPC, we were talking, I was very much in favor of them. And I was out speaking to a lot of people. There was a lot of people who were very much against them. And I was trying to show them the value of zero lot lines. But at the time, we hadn't talked about making lots smaller. And so my understanding was we were going to keep everything the same and just move all the homes to one side, which really created a wider piece of property up one side of your house that you could use for something instead of two narrow strips. So now I've got to go back and find all those people and tell them that I was wrong, that the proposal that came forward is actually for smaller lots, and that's a bit of an embarrassment to me. So my direction would be is that this is something we really want to look at. I'm very concerned about putting in more density, houses closer together, houses with no windows. I ask myself on all the proposals like this where I find myself getting emotional instead of logical is, so what is the benefit to Cochrane residents? What's the benefit to future Cochrane residents? And I got to tell you that my answer, and I'm not speaking to you, Ms. Hopper, I'm speaking to council right now. My answer is there is no benefit to the zero lot lines. It just crowds, it lets more homes get built on the same piece of land. This would take exception to even some of the pathways that are listed in your presentation that say we meet those pathways. I don't see this doing anything, for example, for pathway 9 that talks about everybody has a home overhead. That doesn't come from land use bylaw, that comes from the market. And the market currently will dictate whether or not everybody has a home over their head, not land use bylaw. So hopefully council seriously considers, and the feedback that I saw in all of the public consultations and the comments we're sitting were, I don't want to quote the numbers, but they're probably 80% said residents don't want zero lot lines. So I don't know where we would get to zero lot lines. End of rant. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Balmer. Councillor Nagel has a comment.
Yep, I feel much of the same as the comments that have already been said before me, and I won't take up everybody's time by going through all that again. The one thing that I would add is I feel that this policy is very out of step with the community. Out of touch may even be the word that I'd use. I feel that there is a push from the community, from probably an overwhelming number of people, at least the people who have an opinion on the matter, that we should be pushing to have some neighborhoods with even lower density and more diverse options that aren't about squishing more homes into an area. And then just from a strictly pragmatic democratic standpoint, I don't think it's the greatest idea. But also, I would add that when it comes to the matter of affordability, we already have options to build affordable higher density housing. And once you get down to like 1.5 meters, I ask, like, what's the point of having space at all? You may as well have a townhome or an apartment or something like that. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this policy. I know this isn't a policy. This is a pilot project with some direct controls, but I'm not supportive of the direction it's going. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nagel. Councillor Fideko.
Interesting enough, I'm going to kind of challenge some of the things that have been said. When it came to zero lot lines, I mean, I've seen zero lot lines done really well. You see them in Calgary and areas like Mahogany. And so I wasn't necessarily against them from the get-go. My concerns have always been two very clear things: fire protection and parking concerns. And those are things that I don't think that we can waver on. It doesn't matter, lot size or how close you are. I don't want to consider even going forward unless we have very specific details when it comes to building materials and what we require each of these districts to have. So that's that part. But when it comes to everybody saying that, there's a good majority of people wanting more land, more space, I think you have to consider the amount of people, and I'm going to put myself out there personally, that are single parents, where we don't necessarily want to have to share walls with somebody else. And it wouldn't matter if it was 1 foot or 1 centimeter. Sometimes having your own space is important. So I kind of want to change that perspective that everybody's looking for a big yard. You know what? I'm not looking for a big yard. If I didn't have to mow my yard, I wouldn't. So I don't necessarily need an expansive amount of land. And keep in mind, these are direct controlled districts. So this isn't something that's just going to randomly pop up all over Cochrane. Like all of a sudden we're reducing all sizes and zero lot lines are going to pop up everywhere. It's a very controlled district. And also district control means that council can set parameters around these areas. So one thing that as a councillor, I would personally ask support if these were to go forward is that we allow no parking on the street in any of these districts. If you were going to move into a zero lot line lot and you know ahead it is a zero lot line lot and you can't park on the street, that is one thing. We can't change it after the fact. So let's just be smart in what we do control, as well as building materials. Those would be my two sticklers, but those are very direct things that council can put in place to make sure that these areas are not turning into whatever they want to turn into without any parameters. So that's my comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Fideko. Ms. Moore. Did you have additional comments?
Oh, I already made my comments. I think I had just 2 things in there, but I think Kara has.
Okay, Ms. Locke?
Yeah, and I agree with Monty. My concern was the parking. Houses being closer together, obviously you can park between any driveways, so that would be a real issue. And obviously the neighbor disputes regarding the easements. I feel like it would cause concern, and I don't see the point of it. I don't think it's going to benefit the areas. People move to Cochrane to get away from the high density areas, in my opinion. So I guess I just don't understand why we would even consider it. Things like my neighbor currently has an AC unit installed at the side, like that wouldn't be able to happen. So, you know, there would be things that just wouldn't be able to be put on the property. So I agree with everyone before me. I don't think this is the way forward.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Locke. Ms. Lang.
So I myself, just like Lyle, like I remember this coming up when we first started the land use bylaw review. Riley completely changed my mind as well. And we hit you hard with examples and mahogany and things like that. But again, I'm going to reiterate this fact. Like, we were under the assumption that the lot would stay the same size so that we would have like 2.8, not even the 2.5 or whatever other numbers we're talking about. We would have 2.8 between. I live in a house where they allowed like the little jut out for the fireplace, the exact same side for both houses. So we only have 1.4 between us. I can barely get my wheelbarrow through it. So when you're thinking about 1.5, yeah, you can't do anything in that space. Obviously, like you know, what Cara said as well is you're going to have easement issues down the road. Of people wanting, you know, to even clean out their gutters. They're going to have to talk to their neighbor might not allow it. So will there be right away, like we had discussed earlier today, a right away easement agreement that people would have to know about when they're buying these properties? I also want to reiterate, we have talked about parking, thank God, because I have an email that Bob commented about this. Bylaw Bob does not like this in reference to parking as well, but I love Marnie's solution for it. So that could be going forward. But where it doesn't work is where you look at some of the proposed spots, you've got partial. So it's just partial DC1 and partial other things. Those parking issues are still going to be there. I hate the idea that we are looking at putting this in partials in places. I love the original idea of when they originally design their development, the whole property, that it's going to be already there. I don't like piecing it in afterwards. The only one I actually like is the Precedence one because it's up over in a corner and it looks a little more isolated. The Sunset ones scare me. So those are my reiterations and my 2 cents.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Ms. Lang. All right, so we have a lot of information in detail in order to provide back to council. Lisa, were you able to gather most of our comments, or what would you like to do on a go forward from a process to gather all of our comments? Would you like,
So I took some notes of my own. I believe I've captured the main points that you've all presented. But what I wouldn't mind is to have you submit to me cohesive comments, if that makes sense.
okay. So can our ask be, or may I ask the other counselors, because we're in the world of COVID, that you write down your comments, CC me on those comments, and have these comments go to Lisa. And between Lisa and I, we will collate the comments and make sure that council has them by Monday night.
I can do that.
Okay.
Just for clarity, the public hearing for this is on November 9th. So we have a significant amount of time to ensure we've captured CPC's comments appropriately.
Okay, it's not next week?
It is not next week. We pushed it out further to ensure there was sufficient time for CPC to provide their comment for council.
Okay. What I'd like to do then, if there is sufficient time then, is that Lisa and I will take the accountability, the A for collating them, send them back out to make sure that we haven't portrayed something in a wrong way, or that we have not put forward something that you wanted voiced. Okay.
We also have the benefit of having this meeting recorded so that we can review, because the comment should be reflective of what's discussed here as opposed to after the fact, because there is a lively discussion with the Planning Commission. We need to make sure that these are the comments that are reflected and not additional information that may come up once this meeting is over.
Perfect.
All said, Jaylene.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we move on, is there anything else, comments, questions, anything we want to add on this particular topic and development permit? Or not development permit, but bylaw? If not, thank you.
I have one quick comment, just to say thank you to Jill for taking this on, because I'm sure that it was a very scary prospect. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for pulling the short stick on that one. Okay, so I believe, and I do not have my agenda in front of me, that we have one topic left, and it would be the terms of reference, I believe. Ms. Knight?
Yes, hello everybody. So every year we do a quick terms of reference review for all of our committees of council. You were provided the current terms of reference that council had adopted for the Planning Commission in your agenda package this evening. I believe it's your very last page. And so the discussion really needs to center around whether you feel that that is still an accurate representation of your committee, and any suggestions from the committee itself on any changes that you would like to see, with the full understanding that this is a committee of council. And so any recommendations that may come out of the Planning Commission for suggested changes to that terms of reference would have to go forward to council and be adopted by them, because this is their committee and they set the terms for all of their council committees. And so I am hoping everyone's had an opportunity to review that terms of reference, and provide any feedback you might have as to what might be missing, if you're still in agreement with the terms that are before you, if there's something else you'd like to discuss on those.
And can I add to that, Ms. Knight? So a couple things. We've had some discussions. I personally have been looking at the changing landscape as we go forward. We've been working with a set of bylaws that are very outdated now, 16 years, as a matter of fact. And they are coming forward, and some of the things that we've been focused on over my last 5 years are having been addressed in the new bylaws that are coming forward, even though that they've not been ratified. And with that, I think that there is an opportunity, as we discussed, to maybe kind of look at maybe not the terms of references that are presented, but the how that we could provide more value, more voice, more effectiveness to our constituents. So even if we don't have any specific words today with respect to change of reference, I don't want to think that the conversation's done, that the conversation needs to continue with maybe process and how we could, as I say, be of greater value going forward.
I think absolutely. And it isn't a one and done sort of conversation. It is a requirement within our procedural bylaw that we do review these terms of reference with all our committees. Sometimes it's simply the committee chair taking it forward. Sometimes it's myself attending different meetings to have these discussions, because the terms of reference is just really the framework. And so additional work can be done on the how. I think what, from my perspective, what CPC has been seeing over the last couple of years, as we have had significant amendments to that land use bylaw, despite the fact that the original is from 2004, the amendments is what triggered Riley and his team to say, wait, we need to do a fulsome rewrite of this bylaw because there is gaps that we want to identify. So there have been some significant changes, but what we should be looking at is how are some of these, you guys are now getting way more complex cases in front of you. So that's sort of, I think, some of the direction that we need to be shifting at in looking at even how we do education sessions for the Planning Commission, the things that we feel like you need to focus on. Perhaps there needs to be more discussion at this table to determine what you feel would be beneficial to you for any of that educational stuff. Because we bring in our lawyers and they sort of go over the general information that a planning commission should have, provide you with some direction and some information about your jurisdiction and how that's applied. But I feel like perhaps there should be some discussion at this table ahead of our next education session as to what you think you want, where you think you have gaps yourselves that you would like us to fill with some information from legal, as opposed to the overall view. We are looking at recruitment. We've had a significant amount of folks wanting to join the Planning Commission, so you're quite a popular group. But yeah, I think that we could certainly add some significant value by having that discussion ahead of any educational sessions coming up in the early part of next year.
Mm-hmm. And I think in addition to that, conversations with administration, Mr. Weldon, for example, and to look at how do we get through some of the changes. I mean, the world is changing very fast. And you know, maybe one of the things that we look at is to have meetings on a bi-monthly basis or something like that, so that we can process and get things through faster. And, you know, so there's a number of things from a process perspective that we can certainly consider. So I see a bit of a blank page, just like the world is today.
Yeah, there are that are doing 2 meetings a month for the planning commissions. So that provides them more time to do some of that discussion. There is some pieces of that then also fall to the planning commission to make sure that when we're bringing through the bylaws that are requiring that intensive feedback that we really want from you, that everybody's had that opportunity to fully review that bylaw ahead of that presentation, because we need to make sure that you're coming to the table as fully armed as you can, so that when these discussions start, you've had that time to sort of absorb it and even do some initial follow-ups or something ahead of the meeting, so that you have some formed discussion as you're coming forward. So again, that doesn't impact the terms of reference specifically, but certainly speaks to some more of that process piece you're talking about, Deb. I've been talking a lot, so I'm free to open up to anybody who has any suggestions or thoughts, either on the terms of reference or some of the changes you'd like to see to process or things of that nature. Hi, Lyle. You're quiet.
As a process check, what we may want to do as well, Jaylene, is I've always respected both you and Riley for your willingness to ask, what can we do better? When you're going through this process, it might also be good to look at like what has gone really well, right? Like what sort of things do you like instead of what do you want to change? Look at both sides of it, because there are some things that I think I would not want to see change. One of the things that, as an example, unfortunately we got sidetracked. Mr. Weldon and his group used to work pretty hard at trying to get us together outside of this environment. We take on a whole other dynamic when we put on our CPC hat because it's a very legal responsibility. There's a lot of data that you really don't want to mess up on. But some of the get-togethers that were sidetracked with COVID-19, I found really useful at being able to understand each other better. It removed some of the emotion on understanding where people were coming from. So I don't know what the future looks like, none of us do, but if the opportunity arrives to get us back together again as a group, I'm speaking quite freely for everybody else's time, of course, but those things were things that I found huge value in.
And when we can, I agree with you on that, Lyle. I think we will work to it when that feels like it's a safe thing to do. Our utmost focus is keeping everybody safe and ensuring we're not putting anybody at risk unjustly, which is why we continue to do these Zoom meetings.
So explain to your boss why the CPC party became a hot spreader, right?
I don't want to create a super spreader event with the commission. I'm trying to avoid that. But I agree with you. We should definitely look at the things that the Planning Commission is happy with and ensure that we're not changing just for change's sake, but actually putting in some changes that are impactful from across the board.
If I can make one other example, as in a well done, a lot of times just because of my age, I function better with a piece of cellulose paper in front of me, right? So I put the team to extra work by getting Lisa to print out a whole copy for me. She's been incredible about that. I think I asked for them once and she's been preparing them every time since. So those are things that are really helpful. So the other well done that I would compliment admin on is your willingness to spend extra time to make old people feel easier, more comfortable.
We try to do that for all the people, Lyle. Yes, we're very fortunate to have Lisa pinch hitting for Patrice, and she's done a phenomenal job at keeping us organized and getting the information out in a timely way. So absolutely, I'm glad to hear a little bit of kudos going Lisa's way. She's really stepped up for us.
Yeah, so I'd really like to encourage all of us as we have thoughts, process thoughts, things, just bring them forward, share them with the whole group, and let's open them up and look at them. It's going to be a different world, right, Riley? Once all the land use bylaw things are approved. I mean, we've already seen changes. We're no longer talking about accessory suites for years on end. And so there's be some changes, and I know that you've got some ideas. We haven't had an opportunity to talk about them yet, but there's lots of ways that I think, Jaylene, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the process, even though the fact that we need a CPC is one thing, but we have some latitude on how the CPC functions to provide better value for the particular constituency.
We absolutely do. The terms of reference is very defined about what your jurisdiction, what your authority is, but how we implement that doesn't actually require council to approve whether we change the meeting dates, whether we increase the meeting dates. That's not part of the terms of reference itself. And so we have the flexibility to work to something that feels very meaningful for the Planning Commission. One thing I would say too is a reminder is that this is a collaboration between administration, and the commission. And so it's sort of, it's very different from some of the other boards we have where it's a hearing process. That's not what we have with the Planning Commission. It's really about the planners providing you with all the information, so when you are the authority for approving anything. And so it's hard to remember that when you're in this format in Zoom, because it has a very different feel to it than even when you're in a meeting space when you're all together. So I would encourage us all to remember we're all on the same team. And so how we can improve that team's functioning, we are certainly wanting to do that, and any suggestions from the committee would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. I saw maybe 1 or 2 raised hands here. Erica, perhaps, did you, or no? Yes. Okay. Erica's hand was raised, and then Riley's. Or did I miss Heather? I don't know. No, not Heather. Okay. Erica. Ms. Lang.
It's hard to follow up after Jaylene said that we're all playing on the same team, because it's been weighing heavy on me since we've been going through all the COVID struggles and volume and questions, and that is, and I don't know if this is an appropriate place to ask, but if staff and counselors still see value in having a CPC, or is there an underlying we no longer need them?
That has not been anything that has been shared with me, Erica. I think there's absolutely value in the work that the Planning Commission has done. It is certainly shifting as there's been some changes to the land use bylaw, and there may be some additional shifting when the fully rewritten land use bylaw comes forward. But I think the things that are still coming to you are the more complex cases. Are these bylaws like this DC district tonight, where the value that your comments bring to council are significant. So I have not heard from anybody that I've spoken with, including in my recent conversation with the mayor, that there'd be any indication that this doesn't bring value to council when those comments and things are shared. And as we go, as these things are shifting, we will continue to look at the types of things that are being brought forward. And as the new land use bylaw is implemented, perhaps it's that point we can say, okay, maybe these terms of reference do need some tweaking. Maybe there's a way we're bringing this information forward that we need to amend as part of the process changes. But it has certainly not been shared with me anywhere that the Planning Commission is not valuable to the town as a whole. I think Marnie has something to say.
Yeah, and it's super rare. Like, as I try to look at other towns and things like that, like this doesn't exist. And so I'm like, oh.
There's most places have a planning commission. It's usually called an MPC, a municipal planning commission, as opposed to like the CPC or the town name, but they're around everywhere.
Okay.
In Alberta anyway. I can't speak for other provinces.
Sorry, Marnie.
Yeah.
Hey, that's okay. You know what? I loved what you said, Jaylene. I think that CPC maybe has to consider the fact that we're going to ebb and flow for a bit. We might not know necessarily where we're going to land right now or what we can totally control. I mean, we know now what we can control, but where it goes from here, I think we have to be kind of open-minded as to what we're going to be able to have decisions on, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I personally have never heard anybody on council said anything about the CPC and whether
sorry, the cat's asking all these questions.
Anyways,
just so you know.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Just your window's open. That's the only window I see is whatever's going on in your house. Anyways, I've never heard any of council say anything negative or that we didn't find CPC's information beneficial. Maybe it's because I've also sat on CPC for a long time.
They're not going to tell you.
But honestly, like I think having so many different people's point of view, whether or not I agree or disagree or anything along that line, is incredibly valuable. And I always appreciate looking at things at a different side and taking that time to slowly analyze and pick apart all different types of areas of development where, you know what, I think it's been part of the problem over the years. It's not that development was done bad, but I think, you know what, when development was approved 2015, 5 years ago even, you have a different lens. Then all of a sudden now you consider all the people that move in, all the residents that move in, all the people that are parking on the streets, all the people traveling on the streets. You kind of forget that they come along with it. It looks good on paper. But having different people's point of views is incredibly important. So I don't want to see really any changes, and I certainly don't want to see this or have people feel that their opinion isn't valued or that this board isn't effective. I think it is.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Fideko. And I think an important thing to think about too is the fact that the world has changed and people are working from home now, right? And so again, it thinks about from a development perspective, I think people want a little bit of space around them because they're there all the time, right? So that was
Well, just building on what Marnie said, you're also looking at in the last 10 years, the town has grown significantly. And so those impacts are some of the things we're feeling now, I think. And certainly why Riley's team has taken on this wholesale review of the land use bylaw to try to make sure that the next 10 years have a really good framework in place that allows for that sort of controlled growth that will be good for Cochrane, but it's done in a more sort of connected way, because they have identified the gaps because it's been revisions to that existing bylaw. And so I think, like I said, the Planning Commission certainly has more complex things coming forward, some of the stripping and grading things that are coming forward. And I'm certain you would be very happy not to have every secondary suite in town on your plate, because it gives you more time to focus on these more in-depth bylaws that actually get tagged on at the end of the meeting and don't always get the kind of time that I feel like the Planning Commission would want to put into it. So where we can limit those other things by the bylaw changes that have currently occurred, it does provide you that additional time to really deep dive into like this DC district that you reviewed this evening and provide those wholesome comments.
Yeah, thank you. And not to steal Riley's thunder, I don't know who's going to say anything about it, but I mean, in the ideal world, we would have done the MDP first and then linked the bylaw to it. That isn't the way we needed. The LUB was a primary consideration. We had to do it. But I believe that going forward, there's some thoughts, some plans forward to now go up and look at the kind of our hierarchy or overarching documents and look to see if they are still representative of what we want the world to be going forward.
Absolutely. And I think, when you look at a council put their community vision out, I think that was last year, but this whole year feels like a blur. So it may have been sooner than I'm remembering. But that sort of really is the top of the pile of the documents. So everything will filter out of there. I'm sure Riley would have preferred to do the MDP first, but the way the direction was given, the land use bylaw took priority. And I think that the work that's gone into that, and Jill has been a crucial piece of that group as well. Jill and Joelle have worked very hard on that. I believe that will assist them in doing the revision to the MDP because of all of the additional work they've already done as part of the land use bylaw review. So I know that there's a lot of additional work coming. And a lot of that stuff then again comes through the Planning Commission so that feedback can be provided before these documents are adopted so that council gets that extra set of eyes. And that really is a crucial role for the Planning Commission. So the terms of reference, however, may just stay the same. And I'd be happy to hear anybody's thoughts on the things that are in there. Because if you're happy to stay the same and we want to just work on process and how we bring you information, that is very different than the very sort of overreaching or overarching terms of reference that currently exist within the procedural bylaw. So does anybody have thoughts specifically on the terms of reference, or are we looking really at the process changes that we feel would be beneficial for this group?
I would
think they're
agree
good.
with that. I would agree with that. I think the process and education, information, not just information specific to each topic that we're talking about, but just general educational. I know we didn't get to do it this year because things got out of hand, but I'm still plugging away. What was that?
I said that's a great way to put it. Things just got out of hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I think the only thing that might be beneficial, whether or not the discussion of turning this into a bi-weekly committee is something that that should be considered. I think that some of the cases are definitely more complex, and if, you know, we limit some of the stuff that comes forward to CPC in general, but then some of the cases that we're going to be coming forward are going to be more comprehensive, or they're going to require more detail or more time, or just maybe a slowing down of information and discussion, that maybe we look at turning this into a bi-weekly committee versus a monthly committee where, you know what, you meet at 6:30 and by 10:30 at night. And I know some of those meetings in the early days, you know, they went to 11, right? So how effective are we in making decisions at that point? Maybe it's something just to consider as we go forward.
Yeah.
Well, we can definitely look at that. I feel like where we have some of these, decisions, because there's also that timing piece. So Riley or Ryan and I would have to work through where these things hit the committee, because there is timing on when we can get these decisions. Sometimes that would have been really beneficial where we're trying to get comments from CPC, but the public hearing is on the Monday. We've had some real pushes at times to get those reports done, and that falls to my team, and that can end up being very stressful on both planning and ledge services. So if we could do that, but we'll certainly have to look at how that plays out, and I'll have those conversations administratively to make sure that we're addressing those issues.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, Jillian, I feel for you guys. Like it's just a ton of work, and it obviously adds a lot more work to staff, which I don't want to see. But maybe there's a way to make this happen, whether or not it's daytime or something. I mean, these are all things, whether or not we look at now with new members coming on the committee, or also, you know, with an election coming up within the next year, things that people are going to have to consider if they're going to run and if they want to represent the town, right? So it just gives us an opportunity to maybe change things as we go forward. But I agree, it can't happen overnight, or certainly not going to come in effect into the next meeting. That would be scary for everybody sitting around the table.
Yeah.
What I would really like from everybody on the commission is if you can send me emails detailing any sort of educational pieces you think would be of value to you, gaps that you identified yourself, or even suggestions for things that may improve some of the process pieces of the committee, then I can sort of compile some information and share it back with everybody in a collective email to all of you, so that we can perhaps discuss that going forward as well, so that we can all sort of come to that same landing place on this. I think it's important that we have that thorough discussion once I have those suggestions in hand. If that sounds fair.
Okay, I think we're getting some head nods. Oh, Mr. Baumer wants to speak.
Yeah.
We'll let you speak sometime, Mr. Riley. You just.
Just a question, as we're talking about terms of reference and time and commitment, it's easy to sit here and talk and make plans, but it boils down to something that Councillor Fadeko's comment triggered in my mind. So I got a question for Jaylene and Riley. Lots of bigger organizations that I've talked to in the last couple of months have surprised me with their comments about what working at home has brought to them. And what some of them are finding, of course, once they got through all of the pain, that they actually are finding they're a little more efficient and effective because they're not losing any commuting time and yada, yada, yada. Has that been your experience in either of your roles, or do you find it still, it's a hard one, I know, for you in particular, Mr. Weldon, because you've assumed twice the responsibility, your whole team had to step up. But in general, have you guys found that things are starting to work into a rhythm, and are you finding more time, less time?
Well, I can tell you, most of us are back in the office during the day now. And so I'm home tonight. As you can see, Riley is still in his office at the ranch house, as was Jill, as is Lisa, I believe. So what I actually found, Lyle, was the opposite. So when I worked exclusively from home, I worked way longer.
Okay.
I would sit at my desk. Sometimes I'd look up and 5 hours had passed.
Yeah.
I had not moved one bit. And so getting back to the office actually has been good for me, in that you then have those hallway conversations, albeit with masks on to protect everyone. And there's some gaps that don't become gaps when you're actually physically in some of the same spaces. But I can tell you, working from home, there was lots of 12-hour days where you just keep going because things have to get done. And Riley does 12-hour days at the ranch house. So working in the office hasn't afforded him any breaks either, unfortunately.
You know, just to add to that, what I think I've heard from the team and from those who are back in the office is that you know, apart from the social aspect of it, which is plays a big part of keeping our team together and you know, the benefits of that, but there's benefit from being in the same space. And when you talk about it in terms of efficiency, that I can walk down the hall and have a very quick 5-minute conversation with someone about an issue or something and get an immediate response, as opposed to being from home, having to set up a Teams meeting and kind of going through that process and not really, you know, having it a bit more formal through that. So I think there's a lot of efficiencies that have been that have come back because of that. And to Jaylene's point, yeah, not sitting in front of a computer screen for you know, 8 to 10 hours a day, I think has some benefits as well. But yeah, I think now that we're back in the office, and you know, it was an adjustment leaving, of course, it was an adjustment coming back, but I think things are working fairly well right now. Thanks for asking, Val. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that that's the end of our agenda for today. If anybody's got any thoughts, I'm going to send them to Jaylene. Jaylene will collate and get back to us, and we'll keep the conversation going. So thanks very much, all. We did pretty good.
Before we go, sorry, I did have a comment I wanted to raise. Just sorry, everyone. Just and it was on the education piece for CPC. You know, we're very aware that with this group, you know, we haven't had something formal yet. One of the things that that I realized through some of the engagement that I've had with some of my colleagues and from in other municipalities and even across the border down south is the education piece with their commissions, their planning commissions, plays a huge part of the overall function of the committee. Some going as far as having education sessions on a monthly basis, whether it be on a topic or whatever. And so I'm a huge advocate for that. And I think that is something moving forward would be of a really big benefit for this group as well. And it can be in different forms, right? It doesn't have to be a formal presentation where we're bringing in Jennifer, you know, on a regular basis and that kind of thing, but it can be in different forms, whether it be just quick little half-an-hour check-in meetings or something like that on a specific topic. And yeah, so I think just on that point, I think it would be really worthwhile as a consideration moving forward is how we can make that on a more regular basis.
Yeah, Riley and I actually talked about that early in the year, sort of how would we space that out throughout the year, because 1 3-hour session, it can be totally overwhelming when you have the lawyer standing at the front of the room for 3 hours and not everything sinks in. And so we've experienced that firsthand. So we can certainly spread it out over the year, and I think probably come up with something a bit more meaningful for the commission for sure.
Yeah, I think the best one that we had, Mr. Balmer, you might have been there. I think it was when the lawyer was there and we got to ask a whole bunch of questions. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that? Maybe not.
In the EOC, and she just was there to sort of go through everything, and it was just a free-for-all. That's absolutely what we need to do, because like I said, we are all on the same team. It's sort of not that hearing process like the Subdivision Development Appeal Board or Assessment Review Board. We're all working towards the same goal, and so we certainly can work on how we span that out for 2021, because 2020 obviously was a big miss on that.
Yeah. Can I just speak to that point, because you singled me out? Thanks very much there, Madam Chair. I've actually I'm very grateful for all of the educational work that you guys have put into this commission. but I have learned as much just from the in-house admin people as I have from our legal departments. And in fact, I would venture, not discrediting any of the speakers that you've had, Jaylene, but when you bring in a quote corporate lawyer type, you tend to, it becomes corporate lawyer type, right? So, and it's the same with all things. So my comment to this would be that you can, I've learned as much from sitting listening to you guys talk as I have from the quote corporate lawyers. So that would be my
Yeah, we have exceptional planners in our organization who are certainly able to provide some of that information. I mean, Jill again did a great job this evening providing a difficult topic to you. I think there could be opportunity for them to do similar types of things over the course of the year too, just like a strat session we do for council, providing that background information might be part of the educational plan for the year.
Can I just ask a question then? So what does your team look like, Riley, going forward for the next 6 months? So is Nicole coming back? How are you guys shaping up?
Oh, yeah, I'm not muted. Okay. Yeah, it's she is currently away. I think the return is sometime this spring, I believe, at the end of March, with the potential for it to be extended. Of course, we won't know that until that time. But yeah, Ms. Tomes would be returning to the team. So
other than that, you're fully staffed now where you want to be?
We aren't right now. We are down a position, but with Ms. Tomes coming back, yes, I do believe that will bring us up to it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just one thing, Riley, December's coming up quick. And the last 2 years we've moved the meeting date up a week. So something to think about. I'll just put that on the table now. So, because we've only got November and then into December. And if we can't meet after that one, usually we have a bit of a social. If we could have a virtual glass of wine, that might be what we have to do for the December meeting. So,
yeah,
okay.
That's good.
We'll turn the cameras off at that point.
We won't stream that one. It's fine.
No. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. So with that, can I have a motion to close the meeting? And the next meeting is when? When is the next meeting? November?
It is November, Wednesday, November 18th.
Wednesday, November 18th.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And do we need a motion? I forget.
You don't need a motion to adjourn. You just get to do that.
I am adjourning the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Good night.